Hello and welcome to this David Icke Dot Connector videocast. Well, one of the main reasons that I've been ridiculed over the years is talking about the fact that a non-human force, for want of a term, aliens, are manipulating human society and have been for thousands of years. But it's a bit less fantastic now that suddenly the Pentagon is talking more and more openly about almost commonplace sightings by military pilots of craft that, at least in the public arena, are doing things that human technology that we know about could not possibly do. Moving at fantastic speeds from a standing start, changing direction at those speeds, and defying what we perceive to be the laws of physics. The question is, why? Why, after decades of suppression and serious surveillance, as I know from talking to many of these people over decades, serious surveillance of those who have knowledge about UFOs, aliens, by the Pentagon, to ensure that they can't communicate, at least to a wider audience, what they know. Why suddenly is it okay to say, there's all these things we can't explain? Well, I'll come to that. But first of all, maybe we could just get past this reflex action resistance that so many people still have. It's changing, but so many people still have, that it's crazy to suggest that human life or intelligent life, often not the same thing from what I've observed, has only appeared on this one planet called human. Let's just put this through a statistical chance. First of all, we can only see a tiny fraction of reality. It's called visible light. Outside of that channel, that frequency band, everything is invisible to us. The entirety of forever is invisible to us. Now let's put visible light into some kind of context. According to mainstream science, the electromagnetic spectrum is 0.005% of what exists in the universe. Some say it's a bit more, but not much. Visible light, all that we can see, is a tiny fraction, a smear, of the 0.005%. So on that basis alone, there's a fair chance that in the infinity of forever, other life exists that we call intelligent, and not just human. Then you think that according to the projected size of the universe, by comparison, planet Earth is the equivalent of a billionth of a pinhead. Billionth of a pinhead within one universe, which is only one universe within endless universes. And human life is the only intelligent life that has somehow appeared. Then when you look at that blaze of lights in the night sky, we should remember that what we're seeing is A, only what exists in that space within visible light, but also it's a tiny fraction of the Milky Way galaxy. And until the 1920s, it was believed that there was one galaxy in the universe. The latest, highest estimate that I've seen anyway is that there are 2 trillion galaxies in the universe. From 1 to 2 trillion in less than 100 years. So given the fact that we live on a planet equivalent of a billionth of a pinhead within a universe of what is now projected to be trillions of galaxies, I feel it in my water, I get this intuition that humans are not actually the only form of, quote, intelligent life that exists. So then comes the next question. Will it be malevolent or will it be benevolent, this other life? And the answer to that question is obvious as well. Scan the human race, all races, all cultures, all types, and you will find the spectrum from lovely people to psychopaths. And that will be the spectrum out there. What I'm saying is, after 30 years of research, that the psychopathic variety is manipulating human society via psychopathic middlemen and women that we call the elite. And this is not even a new phenomena. There are endless stories and accounts now from people all over the world of being, quote, abducted by aliens, non-human entities. And they talk often about being taken up in a light beam into these craft and then flown up into the heavens. And it appears to be a modern phenomenon from that point of view. But then you talk to the shamans and the carriers of the ancient knowledges I have around the world. And in their ancient accounts, they describe the same phenomenon. They just describe it in different ways to what it's described today. Being taken up into the sky by the gods, for instance. And if you look at religious texts, they talk about people being taken up into the heavens by the gods in fiery chariots, which from their cultural background and experience is how you would describe such things. We describe it in different ways today, but we have a different cultural background. But it's the same phenomenon. So this is real and it's going on. But the question is, why have the authorities spent so long suppressing this, ridiculing it, and now suddenly they're okay to talk about it like they never have before? It's a question we need to ask, for reasons I'll come to. So what we're having now, suddenly, is the Pentagon, US military, and the Navy announcing publicly that they're changing the rules on pilots reporting UFO phenomena to make it easier, because most UFO phenomena from pilots, as they tell you privately, is not actually reported because they think it will be bad for their career and everyone will think they're crazy. Because the idea of anything existing that humans don't know about is obviously crazy. And so now it's being admitted that there are almost commonplace sightings of craft doing things that no technology we know about in human society exists. And take into account, like I say, that most of these sightings and experiences are not reported, then how many is it? And when you look at the number of people worldwide who've reported either seeing UFOs or directly interacting or being abducted by non-human entities, then this is not even, a rare experience. This is, like I say, it's relatively common. And then you look back at the ancient accounts and they describe the same thing. Because this is not something new. And if someone turns up in some high technology, which even today we go, whoa, how is that possible? And you do it in an ancient society where they don't have technology, what are people going to think they're dealing with? The gods. And I raised this subject today because in the last few days we've had the start of a History Channel documentary series about this very phenomenon, using, quote, insiders as their source, describing how pilots, military pilots, and caught on radar, have experienced technology that is unexplainable from the human public arena perspective, and how many times it happens. And so, given what I've said over the years about this interaction, this manipulation, I should be saying now, see, told you, it was happening. And it is happening, but there's a big question of why the authorities are chilling out about it now. So this is a news story about this History Channel documentary, which involves descriptions of craft that seem to defy gravity, that have no visible form of power. There's no smoke trails. And like I say, they do these incredible maneuvers that seem to defy the laws of physics. And the headline is, former head of secretive government UFO program who claims to have seen mysterious supersonic craft that spun like a top, set to reveal all in new documentary. One of the former leaders of a covert government program meant to investigate the nature of unknown aerial phenomena is opening up about some of the strange and often unexplained accounts. In the upcoming History Channel documentary, which has now begun, featuring former head of the Pentagon's Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, Luis Elizondo, details his involvement with the Pentagon's UFO research program. And he talks about various puzzling reports of aircraft that seem to defy the laws of gravity as humans know them, traveling and maneuvering at speeds unparalleled by current technology we know about. Come to that in a minute. A former Navy official describes some of those sightings which he said occurred between 2014 and 2015. The mysterious craft, which he said looked like a spinning top, had no visible sign of propulsion, but was able to reach 30,000 feet at speeds well faster than sound. And we're talking thousands of miles an hour that these craft are doing, caught on radar. These things would be out there all day, Ryan Graves and FA-18 Super Hornet pilot said. And likewise, Elizondo said these sightings of seemingly impossible aircraft were not uncommon. He said that some of the ships reported by the agency far exceeded known limits of gravitational force. While human technology tops out at about 16 to 18 Gs, the craft seemed to ignore these rules. Elizondo said, these things that we were observing were pulling 400 to 500 Gs, he said. They don't have engines or even wings, and they are able to seemingly defy the natural effects of Earth's gravitational pull. Elizondo's appearance in the History Channel documentary marks the latest step toward an increasing willingness, this is what I'm talking about, on the part of the US government and others to acknowledge and investigate the existence of UFOs. Earlier this month, a US Department of Defense spokesperson reportedly confirmed the Pentagon's interest in UFOs to the New York Post, citing the agency's investigation of unidentified aerial phenomena in an unprecedented use of UFO-like terminology. Why now? In terms of these craft, they describe them as defying logic. But we should understand the difference between what humans perceive as logic, i.e. only what they've been told is logical and possible, against what is actually possible, which is almost everything beyond the tiny little norms of possibility that we are given from cradle to grave to believe. So what we're dealing with here is anti-gravity technology, which simply interacts with the electromagnetic and gravitational forces of the Earth field in a way that disconnects the, quote, craft from the impact of those forces. And also they have the ability to harness this electromagnetic energy, the sea of energy that we live in, the sea of energy in the Earth's magnetic field, and turn it into power for propulsion. Now, this technology has been known about for a long time, and not just by aliens, but by humans. When I was spending an enormous amount of time in America in the 1990s, I met many people from the military intelligence complex, shall we say, who were trying as best they could to get this information circulating, who were describing this anti-gravity technology and how the American military knew about it all those years ago, decades ago. And they have been also back engineering craft that have been found, crashed. I mean, the most famous example is Roswell in the 1940s. But there have been others since, and not just in America either. And this has been back-engineered, not that they didn't know about the principle to start with, to see how it works, and that it can be obviously mimicked. So when we come to this whole question of why they're suddenly chilling out on this, it needs to be understood that not all craft that appear to be not human are not human. In these incredibly secretive underground bases around America, other parts of the world too, technology exists that is way beyond anything that human society believes exists, and thus when they see it, it must be aliens. Now, I'm the last one to say there's not such thing as other races that are not human. Of course. But you see, if we're going to be streetwise, we need to ask questions about everything. And the easiest way to manipulate people is to tell them what they want to hear. So therefore, someone like me, who's been talking about this and writing about this in detail in the books for the best part of 30 years, should now be saying, see, told you, like I said earlier. See, they proved me right. There are aliens. Well, there are. But if we're going to be streetwise, we have to question everything and not just absorb it and accept it just because it appears to be supporting what you've said is true. And so you look at this History Channel documentary, and it describes a team apparently put forward by a rock musician called Tom DeLonge. And this team consists of former CIA people, former Pentagon people, former Lockheed Martin people, which is essentially the Pentagon, military-industrial complex. And, okay, they are in this team that's trying to bring to the surface this apparently suppressed UFO activity. But these people, and I'm not saying they're not genuine, I don't know that. I'm not saying they are genuine, I'm not saying they're not, I don't know. But I'm looking at the questions that need to be asked when this stuff comes to the surface. They will still be subject to the rules, regulations, and suppressions of the security clearances that they had, maybe still have, and the rules of revealing what the authorities don't want you to reveal. But suddenly, it's not a problem. Now that's worthy of questioning for a start, because I know people I've met over the years, like I said earlier, who have been subject to tremendous surveillance and pressure and people trying to undermine them for trying to do what this, quote, team featured in the History Channel series is trying to do. But suddenly it's the authorities back off. So why? And another fella that was quoted in this first documentary in the series was John Podesta. Huh? Yeah, John Podesta, White House Chief of Staff to the deeply genetically corrupt President Bill Clinton, and the guy who essentially ran as chairman the campaign for president of Hillary Clinton, brackets C. Bill Clinton, in terms of being deeply genetically corrupt. And now suddenly John Podesta's saying, oh, we must know about this. So the question is, or in fact there are two possibilities. Is it being allowed because the authorities want us to know the truth? Well, that'll be a bloody first. Or is there another motivation, like allowing information to circulate suddenly that you were suppressing before because of how that will affect public perception, and that will help you to lead to an outcome that you want to achieve? Because, you know, I've come across a number of different sources of information over the years, as others have too, that suggest that there is a possible scenario in which a, quote, fake alien invasion or threat is created, and from that you centralize power militarily and politically in the world to meet that threat. The most famous of these projects is known as Project Bluebeam, which was written about, as I did myself, came from a Canadian investigator originally, in many, many years ago, back in the 1990s, that this Project Bluebeam, part of its brief was the creation of an alien invasion, or the illusion of one, which would then justify so many things in terms of centralization of political and military power globally to meet this threat. And the theme was basically described by President Ronald Reagan in a speech to the UN in 1987. And here's a clip of that. And the second clip that goes with it has Reagan talking about basically the same theme. And the he that he is talking about is Mikhail Gorbachev, then the leader of the Soviet Union. This is what Reagan said.
Perhaps we need some outside universal threat. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world. And yet, I ask you, is not an alien force already among us? What could be more alien to the universal aspirations of our peoples than war and the threat of war? I couldn't help but say to him, just think how easy his task and mine might be in these meetings that we held if suddenly there was a threat to this world from some other species, from another planet, outside in the universe. We'd forget all the little local differences that we have between our countries, and we would find out once and for all that we really are all human beings here on this earth together.
Now, only Reagan will truly know what he meant by that, if he was using it as an analogy or if he was, indicating something literal. But I show those clips because they describe the theme of Project Bluebeam and a mass manipulation technique that I call problem reaction solution, or also no problem reaction solution, where you create a real problem or the illusion of a problem. You get the public to react to the problem, do something, oh my God, we're all going to die, and then you offer the solution to the problem you have covertly created, or the illusion of the problem you have covertly created. And after all these decades of researching this around the world, there's no doubt that the authorities, the deep beyond what you see authorities, the real power, have the technology, both in terms of anti-gravity craft and holographic manipulation of perception technology, to make it look to large numbers of people that actually we are somehow being threatened by an alien force to which we must all centralize power to meet that threat. So this is why I question this so-called increasing disclosure that's taking place. Authorities that have lied to us throughout the history of authority, certainly lied to us about the interaction of non-human races with human society suddenly are more open to us knowing. That's not because they want us to know the real truth, it's because they want us to know their truth so that they'll get the outcome that they want. So, like I say, I'm not casting aspersions on people in this History Channel documentary. I'm asking why authorities are suddenly totally changing their tune on disclosure. And they're questions we need to ask so we don't get scammed. And so we need to watch, I would suggest, where this goes from here. And if there's more and more genuine disclosure, okay, fair enough. But if it starts to move in this direction of, oh, hold on, we could be under threat from aliens, we have to centralize power militarily and politically to meet the threat, if that happens, then big red flags need to be waved and flashing red lights need to be everywhere. Because if that happens, it's a scam. People say I talk about some weird stuff, some far out stuff. But how about that chair that you're sitting in isn't solid? How weird is that? This reality is nothing like we think it is.
When I saw what Icke is doing, like I was a bit jealous on him. Like, wow, look at what this guy's doing.
I don't know if anybody else could do it but him, actually.
We are in a period now where speaking your truth is not just important, it's utterly crucial to where humanity goes from here. The world needs renegades.